Hello there everybody, Sabana92 aka Nightmare, and welcome back to Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. In the last episode, we began the trial, and we also managed to get some information about the SL9 incident. We also managed to kind of get some more testimony out of Meekins, and on top of that, we finally got some visual confirmation of of what happened in that evidence room. We unfortunately were not able to see quote-unquote Goodman's face, but I'm guaranteeing that it's definitely Jake Marshall. The real question here, though, is how this whole thing was done and why. I have a theory, though. There's a possibility that the original Bruce Goodman might have had something to do with, or possibly was involved with the initial SL9 incident, and by that I literally mean as in he might have been somehow connected to the actual serial killer that was caught. Sort of. Also, Emma ran away because this involves the SL9 incident, and that kind of, yeah. The court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lorna Skye. Emma didn't come back. Allow me to call the next witness to the stand. The officer in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime. I'm sorry, are you drinking in the middle of a court session? Witness, please state your name and occupation.
Me, partner? I'm just a man, same as you, wandering the trails of civilization.
Occasionally helping the elderly cross intersections when needed, yes, we get it. Oh, I know! You're a patrolman!
That's my name. If you want to listen hard enough, you can hear the howling wind calling it out.
To be exact, it's Jake Marshall, Your Honor. Howling wind? I've never heard Edgeworth described that way before. Now, Mr. Marshall, let me ask you something. You're in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day the crime took place. Is this correct?
Going to the papers, partner.
What do you mean?
A desperado's soul is as boundless as the desert sands. No paper can sum it up.
Maybe it's best we get on with this quickly. I'm already still wrapping my head around what DVDs are, honestly. So, yes. Please share with us your testimony of the day of the crime. In plain old English. Alright, here we go.
My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. They said I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room's protected by 2 security systems anyway. If I remember right, I was at the street side saloon at the time it went down. I'm just an innocent traveling man, so if you're out of ammo, it's time I hit the trail.
Is it weird I'm actually having fun voicing him? I can't say I particularly care for your attitude.
Can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining.
Wait a minute. What do you mean by 2 security systems? I thought there was only 1. In that room.
Oh, duh. I mean the security cameras and the ID card reader. I reckon even a cowpoke like you knows about those.
Oh. I was under the assumption that it'd be like multiple rooms or something, but okay. Yes, well, what about the fingerprint activated locks on the evidence lockers?
Fingerprint activated locks? What kind of newfangled doohickeys are those?
He's not being very helpful. He's not that good with machines, or with following orders.
Everyone's got their weaknesses, now don't they, Mr. Prosecutor?
Oh, for God's sake. This one seems like trouble. Okay, Mr. Wright, he's all yours. Don't drop enough on me, man.
Day of the crime.
How exactly did you keep an eye on the evidence room?
I just made sure nothing moved in the security camera monitor. That room's so still, even time dies in there. I was just a caretaker who interred the recordings.
You interred them?
Videos of nothing aren't that useful. When the time would come, I'd erase the tape.
If nothing unusual is recorded, tapes ought to be erased every 6 hours.
Each time I'd erase a tape, it felt like I was erasing a part of my life.
This guy has a flair for the dramatic. It isn't going to do him any good. So, in actuality, you don't physically enter the evidence room. But you made your rounds on the day of the crime, right?
Ain't you heard a word I said, partner? I told you that ain't my style.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
No desperado I know lets rules get in his way.
No desperados I know joined the police force. So, Officer Marshall, on the day of the crime?
Just between you and me, I didn't set foot in the evidence room that day.
There was a rubber glove stuck in the victim's locker. Do you know anything about that?
Sorry, partner. Can't say I do. I haven't been in that crypt in weeks.
How does this guy avoid being fired? I don't know, ask Gaunt. You used to be a detective, so you've used the evidence room in the past, correct?
Of course. Back in the day, my locker was a gold mine of evidence.
And yet, you didn't know about the fingerprint locking mechanism.
Sorry, partner. I ain't good with machines. I couldn't even tell you how a bike works.
That's quite... incredible. Okay, the sensors on the locker handles cannot be seen. It's well known that some detectives are unaware of their presence. Now that he mentions it, Detective Gumshoe said something like that too. At any rate, it doesn't seem that this is relevant to the crime. Can you tell us what you were doing when the crime took place? He said that he was at a saloon, so... that's a bar. Wait, what were you doing in a place like that? Wouldn't that technically mean that he's been drinking on the job? Or is he even supposed to work there? Wait!
I was eating spaghetti.
What?
Not even Angel's steak lunches can beat that parlor's Von Gogh sepia pasta.
Von Gogh sepia okay. Do you mean to tell us you abandoned your police duty to eat some noodles?
Not all desperados eat tacos, partner.
But... that's not what I meant. I hope this has at least taught you a lesson. That's strange. This is usually where Edgeworth says, "Did you not want a raise this year?" Out of ammo, Officer Marshall.
That's right, partner. Or as you'd call it, evidence. Or in some other universes, a truth bullet.
What?
If you plan to pin me to this crime, you'd better draw. Otherwise, you're just wasting my time. My steel horse is waiting to carry me back west into the sunset.
One thing seems clear. Despite being responsible for guarding the evidence room, the witness doesn't appear to have seen anything.
Texans don't take orders from anyone. Everyone knows that.
Hey, my viewer's from Texas. Is this true? Apparently your superiors don't. Okay, I have a trump card up my sleeve, so I'd best keep my cool. Before I use it, though, I'd better up the ante. They said I was supposed to make the rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room's protected by 2 security systems anyway. Remember right, I was at a street-side saloon at the time it went down. You're at a street-side saloon. Okay, I don't have to bring this up yet, obviously. Apparently this was never erased, so I should probably bring that up, but... Marshall's fingerprints, I think that's the, I think that's supposed to be the actual thing that I'm supposed to hold off on. So I should probably try to present this security video at some point. Let's see. wait a minute. If I remember right, it was at Street Side Saloon at the time it went down. Or... Okay, you know what? I try not to do this all that often, but I would like to see what happens if I try to... That's the trump card. And Phoenix said that I should probably hold off on using this yet. Just right now, I shouldn't use this yet. I really wonder what this has to do with. Two security systems. Your Honor, what do you think about this witness statement? I'm not sure I follow. It clearly contradicts the, I thought. Oh, God damn it. You don't sound very convinced, Mr. Wright. Objection overruled. I deserve that. I don't want many points of the judge. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Well, I mean, I guess technically I could try to... I guess technically I could try to, you know, present the fingerprint thing, or his fingerprints at... Okay, which thing would it be at? Let's see. I think it was supposed to be... Let's see. Yeah. I mean, I can probably produce... Or, god damn it. I could probably present the handprint evidence to him at this point. But something tells me that I probably shouldn't, because, again, I'm just taking into account Phoenix Wright said that I'm assuming that the handprint must be the trump card. I think. I'm just... I'm half tempted to actually give this a try to see what the hell happens if I do that, though. Objection! Son of a bitch! Son of a bitch! I was right! Officer Marshall, doesn't it strike you as odd? That is, you being called in to testify like this. After all, you weren't in the security room at the time of the crime.
And yet you dragged me down here. Explain yourself, partner.
That's quite simple. You left a very large trail behind at the scene. Or to be exact, a handprint.
Listen real good, partner. Like I said, I'm the caretaker of that crypt. I pay my respects. That is, make my rounds about once a month. It's only natural my fingerprints will be in there.
Bullshit! I only wish it were, officer. But you see, your fingerprints were covered in blood. Witness, what's the meaning of this? Your blood-stained fingerprints were at this crime scene? The blood was wiped away. However, a luminol test clearly revealed this. Well, Officer Marshall?
Seems to me. There ain't a person in this room with a head on his shoulders.
Huh? I take it you have an explanation then, Officer Marshall. About the blood-stained fingerprints? Very well, you may begin your testimony about your fingerprints found at the scene of the crime. Alright, let's see what he comes up with.
Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in that evidence room. One of them just happened to be at the same place as the blood-stained handprint. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprint was by chance. Blood-stained and the fingerprint are completely unrelated. Oh, didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? See? I had nothing to do with it.
How did you know the murderer was wearing a glove? The witness's explanation appears valid, although there's room for doubt.
Life wouldn't be fun without any doubt, partner.
I agree, apparently. The defense may now cross-examine the witness. This guy's hiding something. I can feel it. Now's my chance to prove it. Alright, here we go. killed it! That's because you, how did you put it, pay your respects once a month?
Yeah, that's right. That and one more. That locker happens to be mine.
What? What do you mean?
I mean what I said.
Oh! But that also, you slipped up. You slipped up. You just revealed that you were the one pretending to be Goodman. And here is my proof. In that video footage, you know what? Let's just casually re-review this video, shall we? The light's not on over there at that frickin' locker. So, I wonder, how the hell did that locker get open? Oh, it requires a fingerprint. You just screwed yourself over, Marshall. I pay attention to some details. Not all of them, but some of them. I'm sorry. Anyway.
That's the locker I used when I was a detective. The locker I still use. All that's in there now, though, is a heap of broken dreams.
I see.
It'd be strange if my prints weren't all over that locker.
Apparently, his fingerprint data was never removed from that locker's programming. He must have been using the fingerprint lock all this time without ever knowing it. Aha! Marshall's fingerprints updated in the court record. Found a bloody handprint. Interesting. So then, what about the bloody handprint?
Wasn't mine. No mystery.
Please explain.
My locker is covered with my fingerprints. It just so happened.
The chances of that happening are 1,000,000 to 1.
On the contrary, one could argue just the opposite. The chances of that not happening are 1,000,000 to 1. Get one thing straight, partner. You ain't gonna get no reward from me with a mere fingerprint. You wanna know why?
Unrelated?
They're as different as night and day. Kinda like cereal and cereal.
I hate the English language.
One's got to do with breakfast while the other's a type of murder.
Well, he is right. Although seemingly alike, they're totally different. I don't see what homonyms have to do with this.
Or did you know the murderer was wearing gloves?
How do you know that?
I may be alone, but I still do my job. I keep up on the reports.
There was a blood stain at the scene, thought to be left by the murderer. That's right. It was found on Detective Gumshoe's locker. However, no fingerprints were detected on that handprint. Oh yeah, I think we tried that too. So that would mean the murderer, wearing gloves, happened to place their hand on top of Officer Marshall's fingerprint.
That's the only logical conclusion. Are you starting to get the picture, partner?
The picture?
This seal of blood in the desert, it's just food for the buzzards. There's only one reality, and that's this.
The security tape.
So long as my trail isn't in there, or my trail isn't in there, you can't say otherwise.
I can prove it! This isn't getting us anywhere, Mr. Wright. Please consider carefully where you're going with this cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Now then, continue your testimony, Officer Marshall. Too bad it wasn't me in that video, right, partner? What do you mean by that?
You want to tie me to this crime, isn't that right, partner? If so, that video is the only direct evidence you have.
But that video is next to useless. It's full of blind spots. Blind spots? Places you can't see. The camera's panning back and forth. The floor isn't shown. If someone was familiar with the camera's position, they could leave the room without being caught on tape.
Objection!
Hey, we don't have time for your speculations, Mr. Wright. Well, Mr. Wright, if you can show us evidence in this video that indicates Officer Marshall was present, please do so now. I will! I know what to do! Very well. Allow me to point out your mistake, Officer Marshall. Tread carefully, Mr. Wright, or you might wind up being the one making the mistake. Now then, let's have another look at the video. Show us this incriminating evidence of the witness. Officer Jake Marshall. Alright. I know what to do. This detail bothered me in the last episode, so I'm happy that I at least remembered this particular piece of information. Okay, one more pan. Bringing our attention back to the security camera is a mistake I'm afraid you'll soon not forget, Officer Marshall.
The days are short in Texas, and so are our tempers. Could you sum up what you have to say in 8 words or less?
Very well. You can clearly be seen in this video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hey, you did it!
Exactly 8 words. Not bad, partner.
The key lies in a certain locker shown in the video. That locker with the white cloth sticking out. That was the witness's, I believe. Now then, let's rewind the video a bit. You can't escape my eyes! Unless you can. Ugh. I'm very picky with my observations. Oh! The white cloth! It's gone! What's the meaning of this, Officer Marshall? When the crime took place, the white cloth wasn't there. Then it suddenly appeared. There's only one explanation. Officer Marshall, you were in the evidence room at the time of the crime. What's more, you opened your locker when the camera was turned away. Order! Order! It would seem that's the only...
Hold your horses. Sorry, partner, but you got the wrong man. So what if my locker was open? That doesn't mean I'm the one who opened it.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
The murderer needed to hide something, so he opened a locker and stuck it in. It's not my fault he happened to choose mine. Why's everyone staring at me like I'm a wanted man?
This guy isn't just playing dumb. He really doesn't know. I hate to rain on your parade, but you're the only person who can open that particular locker.
Oh yeah? I call your bluff. You say open that locker, now prove it.
The locker's design.
Take that!
Fingerprint sensor?
Yeah. We talked about this earlier today. The lockers can only be opened by the detectives they belong to.
What kind of crazy talk is this?
Well, Detective Gumshoe did mention something about this.
Oh, in any case, the locks aren't that obvious. There are even some people on the force that don't know about the fingerprint locks.
So, Sheriff, what do you have to say in 8 words or less? Eating jerky?
I only got one word for you, partner.
No! Okay, what the hell?
Oh,
Okay, I could have done better with that one. Order, 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 witness, explain yourself!
if this is a joke, it's the worst I've ever heard.
I assure you this is no joke, Officer Marshall. Now then, please tell us what you were doing in the evidence room at the time of the crime. Olay! Please answer the question. What is he now, a bullfighter? That's all right, Officer Marshall. I believe we can figure the rest out from here. We can. Have a look at these floor plans. There's no place for someone to hide in the evidence room. Yet Officer Meekins didn't see Officer Marshall. If that's so, then where was the witness? It seems Mr. Wright has an answer. That's right. The only possible conclusion. Well then, let's hear it. Where was Officer Marshall at the time of the crime? Officer Marshall was standing right here. There, but that's where the victim, Detective Goodman, was. Correct, unless the man wasn't Detective Goodman. I believe the victim in the video is Officer Marshall. It was you, dressed up like Detective Goodman.
Objection!
But that's preposterous. Officer Meekins witnessed the detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd know for sure.
Objection!
May I point out, though, that Officer Meekins did not know Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his card, sir. Yes, and how did Detective Goodman respond? He suddenly pulled a knife on me! Something about the officer's story puzzled me. If the man had had his ID card, why didn't he just show it? Yes, he would have needed it to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it. The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on his ID card. Oh, I get it. If he showed that, his cover would have been blown. Officer Meekins would have realized the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Do you have anything to say to this, Officer Marshall?
You've got quite an imagination, partner. We got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence.
Circumstantial evidence? He's still denying it.
You're gonna have to do better than that to break it, detective. Unless you have hard evidence proving I dressed up as the victim.
I can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition.
I can't say I care for your beard if we don't see me complaining.
Would you shut up about my beard? I'm quite proud of it. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim? Well, who am I kidding? I don't have anything like that.
I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who couldn't take the desert heat.
This can't be happening. It's so obvious he's the one. What can I do? Oh boy. It looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. I'll pass on to you what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you've run into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics? For me, that would be what Mia used to tell me. Phoenix, try thinking outside of the box. I shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise. But rather, I should look for evidence that came about because he was in disguise. Why do you think this locker was open in the first place? What do you mean? There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Thank you, Edgeworth. You are best boy. Yet he did, despite the chance it might be discovered later as it has been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker. According to the defense's argument, Officer Jake Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then, after the crime was committed, he opened his own locker for some unknown reason. The fact that a white cloth is sticking out of the locker seems to indicate that he opened it in order to put the cloth inside. So, just what exactly is this piece of cloth? Perhaps the video is the key to all our unanswered questions. I don't have any evidence, so this video is my only shot. Very well. Let's take yet another look at the security tape. After committing the crime, the witness opened the locker to put away the white cloth. Please show us why the witness had to open his locker. Well, there was a bloodstain on his Oh! I know what to point out now. I know what to point out now. There's nothing on the cloth right over there. Not yet. I'm here! The sudden turnaround. Oh, wait. Aha! For some reason, you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman and enter the evidence room, though I don't know what to what end. Yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When asked to show your ID card, you pulled a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white coat you were wearing was soiled with blood. A bloody white coat. You couldn't just walk out like that. So you hid the coat in your locker.
Not bad, partner.
Whew. I did it! Now then, Officer Marshall, are you ready to tell us the truth?
Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago. If you were only half as persistent then as you are today, we all wouldn't have to be here now. Now would we?
Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did. All of it.
All right. Seems the time has come. Oh boy.
Marshall's confession.
I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out and managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15.
Huh. So the supposed victim was really you. But there's one thing I still don't understand. Traces of a large quantity of blood were found on the floor of the evidence room. If no one was murdered, then how could that be?
Officer Meekins managed to cut his own hand. My guess is he's the donor.
It was way too much blood for such a small donation. Oh boy, that was a lot of blood.
Hold it!
When you say it, you mean
Do you even have to ask, partner?
the SL9 incident. 2 years ago, 2 years have passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transferal that day.
Not if I have anything to do with it. That incident's not over.
But what did you hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room?
When the case is closed, only that case's lead detective can look through the evidence. I wanted to have it looked at myself one more time. No matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner. That case is mine.
But Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care so much about it?
That day was my last chance. That's why I...
Well, if we review the files here, let's see. One of the victims was Neil Marshall, which makes me think that that was his brother. That's what I'm thinking. So he would obviously have he would have a stake in this sort of case. But despite it being closed and the perpetrator being sentenced to death, it makes you wonder, like, why he's so adamant on this if it's already been solved, unless Joe Dark was innocent. Possibly. And again, unless that there was something else going on here. Why did you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman?
If I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transferal, I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere.
So you did it to fool the security camera. And the detective's ID card.
Oh, I stole that the morning of the incident.
So that really was why Goodman started filling out that lost item report. But he screwed up his own number because he couldn't remember his ID number.
I returned his ID card. Tablet's on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot.
The ID card I found was left there by Officer Marshall. So essentially, you managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight.
What do you mean, partner?
I mean the fingerprint-activated lock, of course. And no matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have been able to open that locker yourself. But he could because the rubber glove just happened to get stuck in the door. That means Detective Goodman must have opened the locker before Officer Marshall.
I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out.
You pulled a knife on Officer Meekins and tried to drive him off?
Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time.
Officer Meekins certainly is a one-in-a-million type of person. Mistaking a detective for an intruder and demanding to be shown his ID. I'll have to think a little more about his raise this year. He's trying. Where did Edward get so much influence?
Anyway, he threw himself at me and I ended up cutting him slightly. I'm sorry that it turned out that way.
No, you apologize to Meekins yourself, dude.
Me knocking him out and everything.
By the way, what happened to your knife?
Oh, mean this one? The one I keep shaving myself with?
I don't know what to say. So you knocked Officer Meekins out and... So you did your research beforehand?
Those that go into the desert unprepared don't live long, partner. I didn't think it would make a difference, though. Security tape was erased every 6 hours. If all had gone as planned, no footage would have been left.
However, you bloodied your coat in your struggle with Officer Meekins.
If someone was in the security room when I came out, the jig would have been up. I opened my locker and stashed it in there.
What was Officer Meekins doing during that time?
What else? He was sleeping like a baby.
So what you're saying is, on that day... But the blood found at the scene certainly indicates a crime took place.
What are you, blind? The victim showing that tape is me, and I'm not dead yet, partner.
So you stole the evidence from the locker?
Actually, no, I didn't.
What? Why not?
When I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone.
What? What? Mr. Edgeworth, where is that evidence? It's still missing, Your Honor. Oh. Detective Goodman's locker was already empty. Someone else stole the evidence. Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing?
Fire away, partner. It's a free country. Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer.
Why did you do this? Stealing a detective's ID? Injuring a police officer? This is no small offense. Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. It can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution.
Like I said, this isn't your case. This one is mine. And I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with.
The witness has an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more.
I can't just forget the SL9 incident. You know why?
Your brother.
Hold it!
I'm gonna press it anyway, but I'm gonna present that. But that case was solved 2 years ago, wasn't it? And that's the reason the evidence was stored in the evidence room. Joe Dark was convicted for his crimes. One thing I can say for sure is he deserved his sentence. I remember the Joe Dark case. It involved serial murders, didn't it?
I don't intend to complain about how it turned out. But there's something that still bothers me. Something went down at that trial. Something no one will talk about.
What happened?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Why is he so concerned with that incident? Maybe I should present him with what I think is his real reasons. I had a feeling we'd wind up here sooner or later. Everyone involved here is related in some way to that case. I better take another look at the files. It's got something to do with his brother.
Objection!
I'm assuming it's his brother, or I shudder to think about it, but maybe maybe he has a son? Or fuck, I don't know. Either one would be terrible. Or the other possibility, maybe his father, or I don't know. Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident.
Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner. That man, I remember that boy Sokka. He was really getting deep into that stuff. Poor boy couldn't handle the illusions. He's too young to be drinking.
What? I have the SL9 incident file here. The name, Marshall, is mentioned in here. In the list of murder victims, Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Neil Marshall?
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the name. 2 years ago,
Oh,
he received the same lousy prosecutor award you got.
what? A prosecutor? You must be talking about the King of Prosecutors Award. Now I remember. Prosecutor Neil Marshall. He handled the SL9 case before I did.
That's right. He was killed. And the case fell into your hands.
But what's his relation to you?
He was my brother.
Knew it.
He was investigating the murder of Damon Gaunt, the then the deputy chief of police.
Oh, that was him! Down there!
The group of detectives I was part of worked under them. We were desperate to prosecute the killer.
Who are you?
Joe Dark.
Oh, he looks like a killer.
My brother fought Dark and was killed. That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. That was all we needed. He was arraigned and incarcerated. The case was finally closed. At least, according to the public records.
What do you mean?
My brother couldn't have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight.
And that's it? That's your reason for your insane actions?
There's more to my brother's death than what the records say. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me.
Oh, do you think that maybe your brother was set up just to capture Dark? Like he was sacrificed as sort of a pawn, maybe? In which case... Oh... It's been mentioned a couple of times how they were desperate to try to capture this serial killer. So, what if Gaunt, or somebody he's attached with, set up Jake's brother? just as a sort of a target, and intentionally allowed him to get killed by Joe Dark so that way it would leave some evidence to where they could convict him.
Well, at least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime.
That was the last day of the SL9 case could be reopened.
Not satisfied with its resolution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence.
Disguising himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room. Officer Meekins confronted him, so he rendered him unconscious and fled. Oh, wait a minute! No! What if Goodman was the one responsible for Marshall's brother's death?
Yes, this mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. The things that happen by chance never cease to amaze. At exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department.
Chance? It's got to be more than just that.
So if no one was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murder in the prosecutor's office parking lot was the real one. Which, in turn, means only one person could have committed the crime. Chief Prosecutor Lana Sky.
Objection!
But wait, a verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial.
Objection!
Which is why we examined the incident at the police department today.
But
There's only one reason the defendant was not convicted yesterday. There yet remains the mystery of the simultaneous murder at the police department.
Seems to me, this boy's got the draw on you, partner.
All of the mysteries at the police department have been resolved, no doubt about it. Our sole murder took place at the prosecutor's office. The only suspect is Lana Sky. And the testimony of one Miss Angel Star is completely uncontestable. If you have a response, make it a single word or less. I rest my case. Jeez. It seems this trial has reached its conclusion. There's no room for doubt. Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I didn't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder at the police department.
there's no doubt what I proved today is true. The apparent murder on the security camera's tape really was fake. But I didn't realize that would end up proving Lana guilty.
Now then, the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant. Oh, who said it? Emma? Your Honor, wait! Emma! The defense has an objection. A scientific objection. Right?
What do you mean, right?
Mr. Wright, are you this girl's guardian?
Your Honor?
Oh, in a sense. Please, Your Honor, all I'm asking is for a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please.
I don't want to leave any loose ends. You want a minute? I'll give you 3.
Oh boy! I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dark killings.
Now that she mentions it, the names of both Sky Sisters were in that file.
But that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So, I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing. The other handprint.
You mean the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker?
But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So, I ran over there and looked at it again.
Huh? So, did you find something?
No.
Huh?
Sorry. I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all.
Is that all?
Please don't be mad. I'm just a high school student.
And I'm just an attorney.
But, Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have. If we can't find something wrong with them... Please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone can save Lana, it's you.
We still have that vase. Me? Oh boy!
Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright, with regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain?
It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this?
Mr. Wright, I'm sorry I can't be of more use. But still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lana will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day.
Yes, Your Honor. If I've ever needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing? We never did figure out where that missing piece of the unstable jar is. And this is also broken, so... Huh.
Objection!
This handprint left at the crime scene clearly shows a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is your grasping, Mr. Wright. You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Yes, this is strange. Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? Oh, you mean something hasn't been drawn on there? Yes, something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of the blood mark.
Let us pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright.
With all this evidence here, there's got to be something I can use.
The question is, which item can prove something is missing on the floor plans?
You mean the blue badger panel? That was in the security footage, but it was outside the police department, so... yeah. That was kind of bothering me a little bit, you know?
What about that piece of plywood?
The blue badger! Mascot of the police force! Defender of truth! Guardian of proof! Really? Explain yourself, Mr. Wright. Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The blue badger is not here.
So?
So, watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. It blocked the locker with the bloody handprint. Oh! Well, what? That's right. So long as the blue badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. What? So, that means... just exactly what does that mean? It means it can't be done. What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found on that locker. Don't look at me. I didn't put it there.
Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically.
Emma.
On that afternoon, Officer Meekins was the one who brought the blue badge to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint on that locker.
So that must mean this blood mark was left there before the blue badger was brought in?
Just one moment. I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom.
It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room,
blood was spilled not once, but twice. But how? One time was captured on this tape, taken by the security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand, from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is, the other time, where the original big blood stain was. That means that one was cleaned up. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered.
Objection!
You gotta be kidding me. That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim.
Objection!
I object your objection. I object your objecting your my objection. I am lost. The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found in the locker.
Objection!
So then, assuming this murder you purport really happened, when did it take place? I demand you show evidence that proves when it occurred. When did the first incident occur? To summarize, the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right. The blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well. Then tell us, when did this first incident occur? As Mr. Edgeworth said, proof must be presented. Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that. Well then, now will the defense please present its evidence? What shows when the first crime took place? Do I still have it? Oh! Here's your answer.
Take that!
If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the killer would have had to enter it, and in order to do so, an ID card would have been required. An ID card. Oh! The ID card record! Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at, let's see here, 4:50 p.m. If the crime took place before that time, then it would be 4:40 p.m. Miles Edgeworth, just what have you done?
I never would have figured you'd have the nerve, boy.
Drop the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me.
Nope, I ain't getting it.
I'm afraid I don't understand either. It's clear from the luminol test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away. By the real murderer. The one with the multiple sevens. I would have had just about 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Let's look at the chart again. There's only one other card number remaining. 77777777.
Talk about a lucky number.
But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room? Since there is no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. Yeah, and by the... Oh, and that means that the... Oh my. The footage is probably gone, too. He went in with many seven. Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 7777777777. That's 1 7 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least at present. What?
Explain yourself, son.
The ID number multiple 7 belongs to someone with a rank of captain or higher. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity.
Objection!
That's ridiculous! Just how?
I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. Please let me finish. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge?
You're all alike, aren't you? Your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates.
Hey! I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you would keep your slander to yourself.
Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask you a question.
Yes?
No, not you. Dark. The defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive.
Lana? Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course, we've looked up her ID number, and it's not multiple sevens.
Don't blame me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing. About that incident.
The SL9 incident.
Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Oh!
Hey, Lana. Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, Occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least, I did. Lana. I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Defendant, just what are you saying?
I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did?
Chief Prosecutor, you didn't. I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana! Even if it involved forging evidence. Oh my god. And by forging evidence, they used his brother.
See? That's what I'm talking about.
I think that's what they're getting at here.
No. No! Order! Order! For the love of God, shut up! Shut up!
Lana's remarks caused such a stir. The chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. The conclusion of the trial would have to wait until the following day. Jesus! I hate to imagine it, but if they were desperate enough to get this serial killer, like, the possibility of them being desperate enough to forge evidence to get this one serial killer, and by forging evidence, I can only imagine that they basically used they used Jake's brother as bait, so they could forge some sort of evidence. At least that's what I'm assuming here. I mean, I'm taking into account Jake's confidence in his brother. I'm taking into account that Neil is a hell of a fighter. That wouldn't go down to somebody like Joe Dark. So there had to have been something that happened. Shit, this is getting dark. But oh my god, I am like, oh yeah, I'm getting really intrigued, and I'm upset that I have to wait a week before I can investigate. Shit. Can you guys tell that I really like Ace Attorney? Can you guys tell that I'm absolutely loving and I'm gushing at just how much I'm loving this? Even if it's fucking dark sometimes. I love it.
So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you partners next time on the rodeo.
That was pitiful.